The Phoenix Theatre and Arts Company's audio drama series presents Frances Hodgson Burnett's The Secret Garden in 5 parts, adapted and directed by Jenna Isabella. For past episodes, upcoming events, and other information, make sure to visit our website at phoenixtheatreartsco.com. That's theater with an R-E. Without further ado, we give you The Secret Garden, Part 2.
Well, dear listener, we've had a lovely respite, but now I think we should get back to the story.
I think you should continue after the rain finally let up, and you finally saw a bright day in England, instead of the grey, dreary days you'd become accustomed to so far.
I remember turning to you and thinking, I thought perhaps it always rained or looked dark in England.
No. Just you wait till you see the gold-coloured gorse blossoms, and the blossoms of the broom, and the heather flowering, and all purple bells, and hundreds of butterflies fluttering, and bees humming, and skylarks soaring up and singing. You'll want to get out on it at sunrise and live on it all day like Dickon does.
Could I ever get there?
I don't know. It's 5 miles to our cottage.
I should like to see a cottage.
I'll ask my mother about it. It's my day out today, and I'm going home. Oh, I am glad. Oh, Mrs. Medlock thinks a lot of Mother. Perhaps she could talk to her.
I like your mother, and I've never seen her.
Well, she's that sensible and hard-working and good-natured and clean that no one could help liking her whether they'd seen her or not. When I'm going home to her on my day out, I just jump for joy when I'm crossing the moor.
I like Dickon, and I've never seen him.
Well, I've told you that the very birds like him, and the rabbits and wild sheep and ponies too, and the foxes themselves. I wonder what Dickon would think of you.
He wouldn't like me. No one does.
Well, how do you like yourself?
Not at all, really. But I never thought of that before.
Mother said that to me once. She was at her wash tub, and I was in a bad temper and talking ill of folk, and she turns round on me and says, "You young vixen, there you stand saying you don't like this one and that one. How do you like yourself?" It made me laugh, and it brought me to my senses in a minute.
After Martha left for the day, I ventured out on the moor, taking in the beautiful fresh air and the beauty of the land. I went back to the garden where I knew Ben would be.
Springtime's coming. Can not they smell it?
I smell something nice and fresh and damp.
That's the good rich earth. It's in a good humour making ready to grow things. It's glad when planting time comes. It's dull in the winter when it's got naught to do. In the flower gardens out there, things will be stirring down below in the dark. The sun's warming them. You'll see bits of green spikes sticking out of the black earth after a bit.
What will they be?
Crocuses and snowdrops and daffodillies. Have you never seen them?
No. Everything is hot and wet and green after the rains in India. And I think things grow up in a night.
These won't grow up in a night. You'll have to wait for them. They'll poke up a bit higher here and poke out a spike more there and uncurl a leaf this day and another that. You watch them.
I'm going to.
Here's the robin.
Do you think he remembers me?
Remember you? He knows every cabbage stump in the gardens, let alone the people. He's never seen a little lass here before, and he's bent on finding out all about you. There's no need to try to hide anything from him.
Are things stirring down below in the dark in that garden where he lives?
What garden?
The one where the old rose trees are. Are all the flowers dead, or do some of them come again in the summer? Are there ever any roses?
Ask him. He's the only one as knows. No one else has seen inside it for 10 years.
10 years was a long time. I had been born 10 years ago. You do remember me. You do. You are prettier than anything else in the world. I don't think I had been so happy before. I had a friend who was delighted to see me. As I stood there talking to the robin, I noticed the flower bed, which had begun to awaken. As the robin happily chirped about, I saw him hop over on a small pile of freshly turned up earth. He stopped on it to look for a worm. The earth had been turned up because a dog had been trying to dig up a mole, and he had scratched quite a deep hole. I looked closely and saw something almost buried in the newly turned soil. It was something like a ring of rusty iron or brass, and when the robin flew up into a tree nearby, I put up my hand and picked the ring up. It was more than a ring, however. It was an old key, which looked as if it had been buried a long time. Perhaps it had been buried for 10 years. Perhaps it is the key to the garden. I took the key in my pocket, went back to the house, and made up my mind that I would always carry it with me when I went out, so that if I should ever find the hidden door, I would be ready. Martha returned the following morning with stories from her day at home, and reminded me that I might soon have some sort of governess or tutor, the very idea of which was very unappealing to me. I was just beginning to find a purpose here, something that has brought me joy and even friends. I wasn't ready to part with them just yet.
Mother says you ought to be learning your book by this time, and you ought to have a woman to look after you. And she says, now, Martha, you just think how you'd feel yourself in a big place like that, wandering about all alone and no mother. You do your best to cheer her up, she says. And I said I would.
You do cheer me up. I like to hear you talk.
What do you think? I've brought you a present.
A present? And I wondered, how could a cottage full of 14 hungry people give anyone a present? I was so overcome.
Mother insisted you needed a skipping rope.
What's it for?
For? Do you mean that they've not got skipping ropes in India? For all they've got elephants and tigers and camels? Just watch me.
And Martha showed me how to skip rope, and she led me outside where I went and played. I soon found Ben and Robin and showed them that I could skip up to 20 times in a row already. You showed me where the key was yesterday. You ought to show me the door today, but I don't believe you know. The robin flew from his swinging spray of ivy on the top of the wall, and he opened his beak and sang a loud, lovely trill, merely to show off. I had heard a great deal about magic in my Aya's stories, and what happened almost at that moment was magic. One of the nice little gusts of wind rushed down the walk. It was strong enough to wave the branches of the trees, and it was more than strong enough to sway the trailing sprays of untrimmed ivy hanging from the wall. I had stepped close to the robin, and suddenly the gust of wind swung aside some loose ivy trails, and more suddenly still, I jumped toward it and caught it in my hand. I did this because I thought I had seen something under it, a round knob which had been covered by the leaves hanging over it. It was the knob of a door. I pushed the thick curtain of ivy aside. My heart was pounding and my hands were shaking. I could not believe what I had found it. I found the lock of the door which had been closed for 10 years. I put my head in my pocket, drew out the key, and found it fitted the keyhole. I put the key in and turned it. It took 2 hands to do it, but it did turn. I took a long breath and looked up the long walk to see if anyone was coming. I held back the swinging curtain of ivy and pushed back the door, which opened slowly. Slowly. I was standing inside the secret garden. It was the sweetest, most mysterious-looking place anyone could imagine. The high walls which shut it in were covered with the leafless stems of climbing roses, which were so thick that they were matted together. I knew they were roses because I had seen a great many roses in India. All the ground was covered with grass of a wintry brown, and out of it grew clumps of bushes which were surely rose bushes if they were alive. There were numbers of standard roses which had so spread their branches that they were like little trees. There were other trees in the garden, and one of the things which made the place look strangest and loveliest was the climbing roses had run all over them and swung down long trundles which made light swaying curtains, and here and there they had caught at each other or at a far-reaching branch and had crept from one tree to another, and they made lovely bridges of themselves. There were neither leaves nor roses on them now, and I did not know whether they were dead or alive, but their thin grey or brown branches and sprays looked like a sort of hazy mantle spreading over everything, walls and trees, and even brown grass, where they had fallen from their fastenings and run along the ground. It was this hazy tangle from tree to tree which made it all look so mysterious. The robin flew down from his treetop and hopped about, or flew from one bush to another. He chirped a good deal, and had a very busy air, as if he was showing me things. I took up my skipping rope again and decided to round the whole garden, stopping when I wanted to look at things. There seemed to have been grass paths here and there, and in 1 or 2 corners There were alcoves of evergreen with stone seats or tall moss-covered flower urns in them. As I came near the second of these alcoves, I saw there had once been a flower bed in it, and I saw something sticking out of the black earth, some sharp little pale green points. I suddenly remembered what Ben Weatherstaff had said, and I knelt down to look at them. Yes, there are tiny growing things, and they might be crocuses or snowdrops or daffodils. I looked all about to see if there were other things coming up. It isn't quite a dead garden. Even if the roses are dead, there are other things alive. I did not know anything about gardening, but the grass seemed so thick in some of the places where the green points were pushing their way through that they did not seem to have room enough to grow. I found a rather sharp piece of wood and knelt down and dug and weeded out the weeds and grass until I made a nice little clear place around them. Now they look as if they could breathe. I'm going to do ever so many more. I'll do all I can see. If I haven't time today, I can come tomorrow. I worked in the garden that first day until it was time for midday dinner. In fact, I nearly forgot all about it, and when I put on my coat and hat and picked up my skipping rope, I could not believe that I had been working 2 or 3 hours.
I think that was the first time you said you were truly happy for an entire day. You worked to clear the way for dozens of patches of sprouts, and you returned that same day.
And I remember you asking me about the little white roots that looked like onions, and I told you they're bulbs. Lots of spring flowers grow from them. The very little ones are snowdrops and crocuses, and the big ones are narcissus and jonquils and daffodillies. The biggest of all is lilies and purple flags. Dickon's got a whole lot of them planted in our bit of garden.
Does Dickon know all about them?
Our Dickon can make a flower grow out of a brick wall. Mother says he just whispers things out of the ground.
Do bulbs live a long time? Would they live years and years if no one helped them?
They're things that help themselves. That's why poor folk can afford to have them. If you don't trouble them, most of them will work away underground for a lifetime and spread out and have little ones. There's a place in the Park Woods here where there's snowdrops by thousands. Oh, they're the prettiest sight in Yorkshire when the spring comes. No one knows when they was first planted.
I wish spring was here now. I want to see all the things that grow in England. I wish I had a little spade. As I sat looking at the fire, I pondered a little. I knew I must be careful to keep my secret kingdom. I wasn't doing any harm, but if Mr. Craven found out about the door, he would be fearfully angry and get a new key and lock it up forevermore. I really could not bear that.
In the shop at Thwaite, they sell packages of flower seeds for a penny each, and our Dickon, he knows which is the prettiest ones and how to make them grow. He walks over to Thwaite many a day just for the fun of it. Do you know how to print letters?
I know how to write.
Our Dickon can only read printin'. If you could print, we could write a letter to him and ask him to go and buy garden tools and seeds at the same time.
Oh, Martha, I didn't know you were so nice. I know I can print letters if I try. That very afternoon I set to writing a letter to Dickon. I knew in no time I would have the spade to work the earth and clear the ground for the new blooms, and then have an abundance of seeds to plant. Martha dictated the letter and I wrote,
My dear Dickon, this comes hoping to find you well, as it leaves me at present. Miss Mary has plenty of money, and will you go to Thwaite and buy her some flower seeds and a set of garden tools to make a flower bed? Pick the prettiest ones and easy to grow, because she has never done it before, and lived in India, which is different. Give my love to Mother and every one of you. Miss Mary is going to tell me a lot more, so that on my next day out you can hear about elephants and camels and gentlemen going hunting lions and tigers. Your loving sister, Martha Phoebe Sowerby.
My work in the garden and the excitement of the afternoon made me feel quiet and thoughtful. Martha stayed with me until tea time, but we sat in comfortable quiet and talked very little. But just before Martha went downstairs for the tea tray, I asked her a question. Martha, has the scullery maid had the toothache again today?
What makes you ask that?
Because when I waited so long for you to come back, I opened the door and walked down the corridor to see if you were coming, and I heard that far-off crying again, just as we heard it the other night. There isn't a wind today, so you see it couldn't have been the wind.
You mustn't go walking about in corridors and listening. Mr. Craven would be that angry there's no knowing what he'd do.
I wasn't listening, I was just waiting for you, and I heard it. That's 3 times.
My word, there's Mrs. Medlock's bell.
Martha ran away, but I swear I never heard a bell ring. It really was the strangest house anyone ever lived in. I sat there drowsily thinking that fresh air and digging and skipping rope had made me feel so happy and accomplished and so comfortably tired. The next week the sun shined so beautifully, and I went to work in the secret garden every day. I saw Ben and Robin every day, and I began to think Ben was growing fond of me.
You're like the Robin. I never know when I shall see you or which side you'll come from.
He's friends with me now.
That's like him. Making up to the women folk just for vanity and flightiness. There's nothing he wouldn't do for the sake of showing off and flirting his tail feathers. He's as full of pride as an egg's full of meat. How long have you been here?
I think it's about a month. Then suddenly the robin appeared. He was evidently in a fascinating, bold mood. He hopped closer and closer and looked at Ben Weatherstaff more and more engagingly. He flew on to the nearest currant bush and tilted his head and sang a little song right at him. He flew right up to the handle of Ben Weatherstaff's spade and alighted on the top of it. Have you got a garden of your own?
No, I'm bachelor and lodge with Martin at the gate.
If you had one, what would you plant?
Cabbages and taters and onions.
But if you wanted to make a flower garden, what would you plant?
Bulbs and sweet-smelling things, but mostly roses.
I felt my face light up. Do you like roses?
Well, yes, I do. I was taught that by a young lady I was gardener to. She had a lot in a place she was fond of, and she loved them like they was children. Or robins. I've seen her bend over and kiss 'em. That were as much as 10 years ago.
Where is she now?
Heaven, according to what Parson says.
What happened to the roses?
It was left to themselves.
Did they quite die? Do roses quite die when they are left to themselves?
Well, I got to like them, and I liked her, and she liked them. Once or twice a year I go and work at them a bit, prune them, and dig about the roots. They run wild, but they was in rich soil, so some of them lived.
When they have no leaves and look grey and brown and dry, how can you tell whether they are dead or alive?
Wait till the spring gets at them. Wait until the sun shines on the rain, and the rain falls on the sunshine, and then you'll find out.
How? How?
Look along the twigs and branches if you see a bit of brown lump swelling here and there. Or watch it after the warm rain and see what happens. Why do you care so much about roses and such all of a sudden?
I felt my face grow hot, and I didn't really know how to answer. I want to play that I have a garden of my own. There's nothing for me to do. I have nothing and no one.
Well, that's true. You haven't.
Do you go and see those roses now?
Not been this year. My rheumatics has made me too stiff in the joints. Now look here. Don't ask me so many questions. You are the worst lass for asking questions I've ever come across. Get thee gone and play thee. I've done talking for today.
So I went on my way, thinking of flowers and the secrets of Misselthwaite Manor, when I suddenly saw a boy sitting under a tree, with his back against it, playing on a rough wooden pipe. He was a funny-looking boy about 12. He looked very clean, and his nose turned up, and his cheeks were as red as poppies, and with round blue eyes. And on the trunk of the tree he leaned against, a brown squirrel was cleaning and watching him, and from behind a bush nearby a cock pheasant was delicately stretching his neck to peep out, and quite near him were 2 rabbits, sitting up and sniffing with tremulous noses, and actually it appeared as if they were all drawing near to watch him and listen to the strange low little call his pipe seemed to make. When he saw me he held up his hand and spoke to me in a voice almost as low as, and rather like his piping.
Don't you move, it'd fright them.
I remained motionless. He stopped playing his pipe and began to rise from the ground. He moved so slowly that it scarcely seemed as though he were moving at all. But at last he stood on his feet, and the squirrel scampered back up into the branches of his tree. The pheasant withdrew his head, and the rabbits dropped on all fours and began to hop away, though not at all as if they were frightened.
I'm Dickon. I know you are Miss Mary. I got up slow because if you make a quick move, it startles them. A body has to move gentle and speak low when Wild Things is about.
I felt suddenly shy, and all I could think to ask was, "Did you get Martha's letter?"
That's why I come. I've got the garden tools. There's a little spade and rake and a fork and hoe. They are good ones. There's a trowel, too. And the woman at the shop threw in a packet of white poppy and one of blue larkspur when I bought the other seeds.
Will you show the seeds to me? Let us sit down on this log and look at them.
There's a lot of mignonette and poppies. Mignonette's the sweetest smelling thing as grows, and it'll grow wherever you cast it, same as poppies will. Them as'll come up and bloom if you just whistle to 'em. That's the nicest of all. Where's that Robin as is calling us?
Is it really calling us?
Aye, he's calling someone he's friends with. That's same as saying, here I am, look at me. I wants a bit of a chat. Wait, there he is, in the bush. Whose is he?
He's Ben Weatherstaff's, but I think he knows me a little.
Aye, he knows you. And he likes you. He's took you on. He'll tell me all about you in a minute.
He moved quite close to the bush with the slow movement from before, and then he made a sound, almost like the robin's own twitter. The robin listened a few seconds intently and then answered quite as if he were replying to a question.
Aye, he's a friend of yours.
Do you think he is? Do you think he really likes me?
He wouldn't come near thee if he didn't. Birds is rare choosers, and a robin can flout a body worse than a man. See, he's making up to thee now. Cannot you see a chap, he's saying.
Do you understand everything birds say?
I think I do, and they think I do. I've lived on the moor with them for so long. I've watched them break shell and come out and fledge and learn to fly and begin to sing till I think I'm one of them. Sometimes I think perhaps I'm a bird or a fox or a rabbit or a squirrel or even a beetle, and I don't know it.
And Dickon began to talk about the flower seeds again. He told me what they looked like when they were flowers. He told me how to plant them and watch them and feed and water them.
See, here, I'll plant them for thee myself. Where is your garden?
It suddenly dawned on me that I would have to share my secret with Dickon, and it made me go pale and anxious at the thought.
You've got a bit of a garden, haven't you? Wouldn't they give you a bit? Haven't you got any yet?
I don't know anything about boys. Could you keep a secret if I told you one? It's a great secret. I don't know what I should do if anyone found out. I believe I should die.
I'm keeping secrets all the time. If I couldn't keep secrets from the other lads, secrets about foxes' cubs and birds' nests and wild things' holes, they'd be not safe on the moor. I can keep secrets.
I took a deep breath and without realizing it, grasped Dickon's sleeve. I've stolen a garden. It isn't mine. It isn't anybody's. Nobody wants it. Nobody cares for it. Nobody goes into it. Perhaps everything is dead in it already. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. Nobody has any right to take it from me. When I care about it and they don't, they're letting it die all shut in by itself and... Oh, shh. Hey, it's all right. It's all right. I've nothing to do. Nothing belongs to me. I found it myself. I got into it myself. I was only just like the robin, and they wouldn't take it from the robin.
Where is it?
Come with me, and I'll show you. And so I led him round the laurel path and to the walk where the ivy grew so thickly. When I stepped to the wall and lifted the hanging ivy, he started. There was a door, and I pushed it slowly open, and we passed in together. It's this. It's a secret garden, and I'm the only one in the world who wants it to be alive.
It's a queer, pretty place. It's like as if a body was in a dream. I never thought I'd see this place.
Did you know about it?
We must talk low, or someone will hear us and wonder what's to do in here.
Oh, I forgot. Did you know about the garden?
Aye, Martha told me there was one as no one ever went inside. We used to wonder what it was like. The nest says it'll be here come springtime. It'd be safest nesting place in England. No one ever coming near and tangles of trees and roses to build in. I wonder all the birds on the moor don't build here.
Will there be roses? Can you tell? I thought perhaps they were all dead.
No, not them. Well, not all of them. Look here. There's a lots of dead wood as ought to be cut out, and there's a lot of old wood, but it made some new last year. This here's a new bit.
That green one? Is that one quite alive?
It's as wick as you or me.
Martha had told me that wick meant alive or lively. I'm glad it's wick. I want them all to be wick. Let us go around the garden and count how many wick ones there are.
They've run wild, but the strongest ones has fair thrived on it. The delicatest ones has died out, but the others has growed and spread, till they's a wonder. See here, a body might think this was dead wood, but I don't believe it is, down to the root. I'll cut it low down and see.
So he knelt and with his knife cut the lifeless-looking branch through, not far above the earth.
There! I told thee so. There's green in that wood yet. Look at it. When it looks a bit green and juicy like that, it's wick. When the inside is dry and breaks easy, like this here piece I've cut off, it's done for. There's a big root here as all this live wood sprung out of it, and if the old wood's cut off and it's dug round and took care of, there'll be a fountain of roses here this summer.
We walked about from bush to bush and from tree to tree. Dickon was very strong and clever with his knife, and knew how to cut the dry and dead wood away, and could tell when an unpromising bough or twig still had green life in it. We were working industriously around one of the biggest rose bushes when he caught sight of something which made him utter an exclamation of surprise.
Why? Who did that there?
I did it.
Why, I thought you didn't know nothing about gardening.
I don't, but they were so little and the grass was so thick and strong, and they looked as if they had no room to breathe, so I made a place for them. I don't even know what they are.
You were right. A gardener couldn't have told you better. They'll grow now like Jack's beanstalk. They're crocuses and snowdrops, and these here's narcissuses, and here's daffodowndillies. They will be a sight. You've done a lot of work for such a little lass.
I'm growing bigger, and I'm growing stronger. I always used to be tired. When I dig, I'm not tired at all. I like to smell the earth when it's turned up.
It's rare good for you. There's not as nice as the smell of good clean earth, except the smell of fresh growing things when the rain falls on them. I get out on the moor many a day when it's raining, and I lie under a bush and listen to the soft swish of drops on the heather, and I just sniff and sniff. My nose end fair quivers like a rabbit's, Mother says.
Do you never catch cold?
I never catched cold since I was born. I've chased about the moor in all weathers, same as the rabbits does. My mother says I've sniffed up too much fresh air for 12 years to ever get sniffing with cold.
He was working all the time he was talking, and I was following him and helping him with my fork and trowel.
Whew. There's a lot of work to do here.
Will you come again and help me to do it? I'm sure I can help too. I can dig and pull up weeds and do whatever you tell me. Oh, do come, Dickon.
I'll come every day if you want me, rain or shine. It's the best fun I've ever had in my life. Shut in here and wakening up a garden.
If you will come, if you will help me to make it alive, I don't know what I'll do.
I'll tell thee what you'll do. You'll get stronger and eat your fill, and you'll learn how to talk to the robin same as I do. We'll have a lot of fun. I wouldn't want to make it look like a gardener's garden all clipped and spick and span, would you? It's nicer like this, with things running wild and swinging and catching hold of each other.
Don't let us make it tidy. It wouldn't seem like a secret garden if it was tidy.
It's a secret garden, sure enough, but seems like someone besides the robin must have been in it since it was shut up 10 years ago.
But the door was locked and the key was buried. No one could get in.
That's true. It's a queer place. Seems to me as if there'd been a bit of pruning done here and there, later than 10 years ago.
But how could it have been done?
Aye, how could it? With the door locked and the key buried.
As we looked around the growing garden, I couldn't help but hear the old song the children used to taunt me with.
Mistress Mary.
Are there any flowers that look like bells?
Lilies of the Valley does, and there's Canterbury bells and campanulas.
Let's plant some.
Oh, there's lilies of the valley here already. I saw them. They'll have grown too close and we'll have to separate them, but there's plenty. The other ones take 2 years to bloom from seed, but I can bring you some bits of plants from our cottage garden. Why do you want them?
When I was in India, a boy called Basil, along with his brothers and sisters, used to call me Mistress Mary quite contrary. They used to dance around and sing at me. They sang, Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and marigolds all in a row. I just remembered it, and it made me wonder if there were really flowers like silver bells. I wasn't as contrary as they were.
There doesn't seem to be no need for no one to be contrary when there's flowers and such like, and such lots of friendly wild things running about making homes for themselves, or building nests and singing and whistling. Does there?
We worked in the garden all afternoon and dreamed what it could become. When the time came for us to leave, I was anxious to leave him because it seemed as if Dickon might be a sort of wood fairy who might be gone when I came into the garden again. He seemed too good to be true. Before I left through the garden door, something occurred to me that I had to ask. Whatever happens, you never would tell.
If you were a missel thrush and showed me where your nest was, do you think I'd tell anyone? Not me. You are as safe as a missel thrush.
I ran all the way back to my room where Martha was waiting with my dinner.
You're a bit late. Where have you been?
I've seen Dickon.
And how did you like the seeds and the garden tools?
How did you know he brought them?
I never thought of him not bringing them. He'd be sure to bring them if they were in Yorkshire. He's such a trusty lad. And who did you ask about the land to plant?
I haven't asked anybody yet.
If I was you, I'd ask Ben Weatherstaff. He's not half as bad as he looks for all he's so crabbed. Mr. Craven lets him do what he likes because he was here when Mrs. Craven was alive and he used to make her laugh. She liked him. Perhaps he'd find you a corner somewhere out of the way.
If it was out of the way and no one wanted it, no one could mind my having it, could they?
There wouldn't be no reason. You wouldn't do no harm. I've got something to tell you. I thought I'd let you eat your dinner first. Mr. Craven came back this morning, and I think he wants to see you.
Oh, why? Why? He didn't want to see me when I came. I heard Pitcher say he didn't.
Well, Mrs. Medlock says it's because of Mother. She was walking to Thwaite village and she met him. She'd never spoken to him before, but Mrs. Craven had been to our cottage 2 or 3 times. He'd forgot, but Mother hadn't, and she put a bold stop to him. I don't know what she said to him about you, but she said something has put him in the mind to see you before he goes away again tomorrow.
Oh, is he going away tomorrow? I'm so glad.
He's going for a long time. He mayn't come back till autumn or winter. He's going to travel in foreign places. He's always doing it.
If he did not come back until winter or even autumn, there would be time to watch the secret garden come alive. Even if he found out then and took it away from me, I would have that much at least. When do you think he will want to see...
Your hair's rough. Go and brush it. Martha, help her to slip on her best dress. Mr. Craven sent me to bring her to him in his study.
Martha helped me get ready to meet my Uncle Archibald. We walked silently through the corridors. At last, Mrs. Medlock knocked at the door. And then someone said,
"Come in.
This is Miss Mary, sir."
You can go and leave her here. I will ring for you when I want you to take her away. Come here. Are you well?
Yes.
Do they take good care of you?
Yes.
Oh, you are very thin.
I am getting bigger.
I forgot you. How could I remember you? I intended to send you a governess or a nurse or someone of that sort, but I forgot.
Please, please. I am too big for a nurse, and please don't make me have a governess yet.
That was what the Sowerby woman said.
Is she Martha's mother?
Yes, I think so.
She knows about children. She has 12. She knows.
What do you want to do?
I want to play out of doors. I never liked it in India. It makes me hungry here, and I am getting healthier.
Mrs. Sowerby said it would do you good. Perhaps it will. She thought you had better get stronger before you had a governess.
It makes me feel strong when I play and the wind comes over the moor.
Well, where do you play?
Everywhere. Martha's mother sent me a skipping rope. I skip and run, and I look about to see if things are beginning to stick up out of the earth. I don't do any harm.
Don't look so frightened. You could not do any harm, a child like you. You may do what you like.
May I?
Don't look so frightened. Of course you may. I am your guardian, though I am a poor one for any child. I cannot give you time or attention. I am too ill and wretched and distracted, but I wish you to be happy and comfortable. I don't know anything about children, but Mrs. Medlock is to see that you have all that you need. I sent for you today because Mrs. Sowerby said I ought to see you. Her daughter had talked about you. She thought you needed fresh air and freedom in running about. I thought her rather bold to stop me on the moor, but she said Mrs. Craven had been kind to her. She is a respectable woman. Now I have seen you, I think she said sensible things. Play outdoors as much as you like. It's a big place, and you may go where you like and amuse yourself as you like. Is there anything you want? Oh, do you want books, toys, dolls?
Might I have a bit of earth?
Earth? What do you mean?
To plant seeds in, to make things grow, to see them come alive.
Do you care about gardens so much?
I didn't know about them in India. I was always ill and tired, and it was too hot. I sometimes made little beds in the sand and stuck flowers in them, but here it is different.
A bit of earth? You can have as much earth as you want. You remind me of someone else who loved the earth and things that grow. When you see a bit of earth you want, take it, child, and make it come alive.
May I take it from anywhere, if it's not wanted?
Anywhere. There. You must go now. I am tired. Goodbye, and I shall be away all summer. Mrs. Medlock, now I have seen the child, I understand what Mrs. Sowerby meant. She must be less delicate before she begins lessons. Give her simple, healthy food. Let her run wild in the garden. Don't look after her too much. She needs liberty and fresh air and romping about. Mrs. Sowerby is to come and see her now, and then she may sometimes go to the cottage.
Thank you, sir. Susan Sowerby and I went to school together, and she is as sensible and good-hearted a woman as you'd find in a day's walk. I never had any children myself, and she's had 12, and there never were healthier or better ones. Miss Mary can get no harm from them. I'd always take Susan Sowerby's advice about children myself. She's what you might call healthy-minded, if you understand me.
I understand. Take Miss Mary away now and send Pitcher to me.
When Mrs. Medlock left me at the end of the corridor, I flew back to my room and found Martha waiting there. I can have my garden! I may have it where I like. I am not going to have a governess for a long time. Your mother is coming to see me, and I may go to your cottage. He says a little girl like me could not do any harm, and I may do what I like anywhere.
Ah, that was nice of him, wasn't it?
Martha, Uncle Archibald is a really nice man, only his face is so miserable and his forehead is all drawn together. But I didn't see my uncle for a while after that day. Instead, I put all my energy and all my life into making the garden grow.
But when did you and Dickon go back to plant seeds in the garden?
We'll have to save that part of the story for next time.
PTAC's audio drama series is a production by the Phoenix Theatre and Arts Company. This week's episode, The Secret Garden, Part 2, was written by Frances Hodgson Burnett, adapted and directed by Jenna Isabella, and edited by Gina Stanton and Jenna Isabella. This episode features the vocal talents of Amanda Booth as Mary Lennox, Gina Stanton as Martha Sowerby, Devin Traeger as Dickon Sowerby, Emma Burke-Kovitz as Colin Craven, Judy Brewster as Mrs. Medlock, Sean Lataza as Ben Weatherstaff, Ted Schwartz as Uncle Archibald Craven. Original PTAC music by Brian Sanishin. For a full listing of credits, visit us at phoenixtheatreartsco.com. That's theater with an R-E. While you're there, please consider clicking the donate link. That would be delightful. Have comments or questions? Email us at phoenixtheatreartsco@gmail.com or find us on social media. A very special thank you to our Patreon subscribers, with a shout out to those sitting in the box seats, Ken Shelby, and on stage seating, Margaret Thurston. We couldn't do this without you. Join us next time for The Secret Garden, Part 3.